offering a large sum of money to be donated to charity for vaccine scientist Peter Hotez to debate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. In recent days, Rogan's initial offer of $100,000 climbed to over $1.5 million. Rogan offered to host a debate between the two on his Joe Rogan Experience podcast after Hotez shared a Vice article accusing him of spreading misinformation for hosting vaccine critic and presidential candidate RFK Jr. People who added hundreds of thousands of dollars to Rogan's initial offer include Pershing Square CEO Bill Ackman and philanthropist Steve Kirsch.
Oh, are you Peter Hotez?
I am. Hi.
Nice to meet you.
How are you?
Hey. So why are you not going to debate RFK on Joe Rogan's podcast?
Oh, come on. That's harassing.
I'm just curious.
What?
Nothing hostile, just curious.
I haven't said anything one way or the other.
I mean, are you planning on doing it?
He just invited me, so we'll see.
And I think you should, though.
Well, we'll give it some thought.
Okay.
It's sad because I said I'm so fed up with the debate me, because it's not really about the debate. If it was about finding out information, as you said, you've already written about vaccines and autism. You've already spoken and written about COVID vaccines. I think you've been on MSNBC and other channels hundreds of times since the start of the pandemic. People can hear your views and the evidence you bring to this. So they're not actually interested in evidence. And it sadly means that you're a man who basically has saved lives abroad with the vaccines you've developed, whereas RFK has contributed to a culture, a vaccine misinformation culture, that has led to the deaths, as you say, of hundreds of thousands of lives, and yet he's the one being celebrated by tech billionaires like Musk and Jack Dorsey, while you're being smeared and defamed. And I would say, I don't know if you've agreed to debate or not. My advice is not to, and people might find that surprising because I wrote a book about debate, but I just think there's a time and a place for a debate. I don't think a historian of World War II should debate a Holocaust denier. I think that's my analogy here. I don't think these debates between experts and cranks do anything other than elevate the cranks.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, there are certain things you debate. I understand what a debate about 18th century Enlightenment philosophy is and debating Rousseau and Bishop Berkeley. I understand what political debates are. But in science, we don't typically do debates. What we do is we write scientific papers. We present our findings in front of a critical audience of our peers to solicit their input and suggestions. But one doesn't typically debate science, maybe the one-off discussion of evolution versus creationism and that sort of thing, but that's not what we do in science. And so that's problem number one. And problem number two is to debate with RFK Jr. I've discussed this issue with him many times by phone and by email, and the problem is, he just keeps on moving the goalposts. I mean, first it was the measles mumps rubella vaccine that caused autism. What's that?
Moving the goalposts is literally what conspiracy theorists do.
Well, I know. I mean, and so then it was, the thimerosal preservative in vaccine, then spacing vaccines too close together, then alumin vaccines. Then it was the HPV vaccine that they said caused infertility or autoimmunity. And then vaccines cause something called chronic illness. So you're always kind of playing this pyrrhic game of whack-a-mole. You knock something down and it pops up, or moving the goalposts. And it turns out it's very unproductive, and it's also pretty exhausting as well.
Exhausting, unproductive. It's disingenuous as well, and kind of ludicrous. I mean, Robert Kennedy Jr. is an environmental lawyer. I wouldn't expect him to debate me on environmental law, and I don't see why anyone would think that you would debate.
All these controversial opinions that you have you had anyone debate you publicly about any of these?
Nobody will debate me. For 18 years, nobody will debate me. In fact, I've scheduled many, many debates, and I've asked Hotez many, many times to debate me. And I think you've asked him, here, why don't you debate Robert Kennedy? And he said, because he's a cunning lawyer or something like that. But I've debated Hotez on the telephone with kind of a referee. And, his science is just made up. He cannot stand by it. He can't cite studies.
Vaccine lobby. Now I know that Robert Kennedy Jr. is he's a big one. He's a big one, and he seems like a very intelligent guy. How could he not be aware of the science behind this? What is he getting wrong?
What he's getting wrong is just about everything. He's formed an organization called Children's Health Defense. And he had a press conference about it. I think it was September, October of last year. It is probably one of the best organized anti-vaccine groups out there. Now, he's doing other things other than vaccines. He's doing a lot of things about environmental health and things like that. I don't know any part of that business. I've only followed what he does with vaccines, but it's all nonsense.
Why is he doing this about vaccines?
I don't know. What's his motive? I mean, you have to ask him what's his motivation.
Would he be a guy that you would want to have a debate with or have a discussion with?
But again, I mean, I'm uncomfortable with the idea of a debate because it's like debating. I don't know. It's like debating a Holocaust denier whether the Holocaust exists. I mean, not that this rises.
I understand what you're saying, but if you're again, I want to bring this up. If you're complaining, there's 19 books ahead of yours that are anti-vaccine books. You've already lost the battle. Like, it's time to regroup, and maybe regrouping would be confronting someone with actual scientific information. I mean, you are a real doctor. You're a guy who actually studies this, and you're a man who understands the science. You're a legitimate academic. You could actually put a dent in this with a real conversation.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr., one of the most active anti-vaccine activists, has publicly labeled me on his Instagram account the OG villain, which I had to look up. It means the original gangster villain. So what we're facing now that very few people want to confront is a globalized anti-science empire, with Russia. And how you talk about that is difficult, right? Because, if you say in one breathless sentence, QAnon and neo-Nazi groups and Putin and the Russian government, you yourself start sounding like someone who throws things at the TV at night. So how you say it in a way that's credible is really important. But I've been pushing hard now for the Biden administration to finally do something about this, because in the past, the Centers for Disease Control has not wanted to take on the anti-vaccine lobby. They very much have maintained a position. Look, Peter, we're not going to call attention to this because we'll give it oxygen. And I said, well, that made sense 20 years ago, but now that horse has left the barn, that train has left the station. It's we've got to do something about it. So, not only bringing in the Health and Human Services agencies, but I feel we're going to have to bring in the Commerce Department, Justice Department, Homeland Security. It's a Homeland Security issue, and even State Department, given the Russian involvement.
The Connecticut State Legislature was debating had a bill to end the religious exemptions for childhood vaccines in Connecticut, and the head of the Democratic Party in the legislature asked me to come out and debate a Yale professor in front of the legislature, and I said, great. I'm from the Yale Medical School. And he called back and said, there's going to be two of them, and it's against you, and they're going to get 2/3 of the time, and you get a third. And I said, fine. And then he called back and said, there's going to be 4 of them, and you each get 6 minutes. And I said, that's all I need. And it's not fair, but it's all I need. And so I fly out on a red eye. I get to the State House, and it's me and 4 empty chairs. Somebody told them, or they all decided, I don't know, not to show up. And that's happened to me again and again and again and again. I agree to debates, and it seems like somebody gets a message, but, who knows? It's obscure. But nobody in 18 years has been willing to debate me.
By now, anyone who's unvaccinated and has been lucky enough to escape COVID, your luck is about to run out.
Do you take care of your immune system in other ways? Do you take probiotics? Are you cautious about your diet?
I'm not as cautious about my diet as I
should be. I'm a junk foodaholic, actually.
Well, that seems like a terrible thing for your health.
It is a terrible thing for my health, and something my wife is working on.
But that seems ridiculous for someone who works with health.
Yeah.
What's going on with you, man?
Sometimes, man, I just don't get it right.